Good morning, everybody. Huge thanks to you all for joining us for this webinar around accommodation, particularly around the Irish Open. This webinar really was driven from a number of questions and queries that we have been receiving from accommodation providers, existing providers, as well as potentially people who would maybe think about a property available for accommodation for the Irish Open. And we just felt that it would be very useful just to try and pick up on some of the key points and introduce you to key people as well across Tourism NI and partners who will be able to help drive those discussions and give you advice going forward. So there are a number of pointers, and just running through this running order. Thank you, Barry. What I'm going to run through here is just obviously this overview and welcome, and setting a little bit of the context of the value and the importance of golf tourism in Northern Ireland. We then have Claire McNaughton, who is our accommodation certification manager in Tourism NI, and Claire will chat you through the legislation and the requirements if you are considering offering accommodation for the event. We have wonderfully got Peter Cassidy from NI Fire and Rescue Service, who's just going to talk through the details of the considerations around fire safety if, again, you're offering accommodation. Carolyn Boyd, our Industry Development Manager, will also chat through that, I suppose, that welcome for our visitors and how we can all really make sure that we have the skills and the information and that great provision for which we're well known just to offer and provide that great accommodation offer for our visitors that come to attend the event, and also how to encourage them to stay as well and extend their stay and really benefit the industry. I'll then just finish off, I suppose, at this stage by just giving you some key pointers on marketing and promotion opportunities, what we're doing here in Tourism Northern Ireland. Also, we work very closely, of course, with Newry, Moan and Down Borough Council, and they're obviously promoting the event as well, and promoting opportunities and promoting that offer for the visitors, but also what you can do to try and get involved as well. We will finish off just before the final close with a question and answer session. Whenever the registration for this event opened, we asked anyone and provided the facility to submit any questions in particular that you have. There's been a number of I suppose, themes, two particular themes actually, but we'll touch on those. Quite a few questions about pricing and about promotion as well. So we will address those questions. I'll be handing over to my colleague Patricia, who will manage that session, picking up on the questions that have been received so far, if they haven't already been covered in detail on our presentations. But also, be mindful that during this webinar, you can submit questions as well. You can do that via the chat function, and our team is in the background picking up on all those questions, and we'll make sure that they're fed through to us as panelists, presenters, as it were, so that we can pick up on those the issues and the questions that you have. Some of them may be quite detailed because we understand that every offer is different, every premises is different, your business is different from the next. So it could be a case of actually it would be better for us to pick up offline with yourself, and we're all very happy to have one-to-one conversations to make sure that your specific points are addressed. I will be sharing at the end, well, throughout the presentation and at the end as well, key contact details, so email addresses for us all. So again, you're always very welcome to reach out and contact us directly. In a sort of housekeeping sense, I suppose, this webinar is being recorded and it will be shared on tni.com. You will get a link in your post-attendee or post-registration email. We'll send you a link to that, and it will also be on our YouTube channel. So again, you'll be able to share it and signpost on to anybody who might not have been able to attend. We also do send this out to anyone who attended or who registered, even if they weren't able to attend, just so that they have that link. I think that's it for the opening welcome, and I'll just move on just to sort of set some of the context for the event. So just a reminder, the Irish Open is taking place in Northern Ireland from the 11th to the 15th of September. We're absolutely delighted to have it back. I think it's a real vote of confidence in Northern Ireland and our ability to host great events. And obviously it's returning to Newcastle, which is great. So again, a vote of confidence in the wonderful welcome and the offer that the industry and the community in Newcastle actually presented whenever the event was here before. So we're absolutely delighted that it's returning. Just some of the key dates, and I'm sure you may well be aware of these, potentially even from the Amgen Irish Open's own social media. So the 11th of September is the Pro-Am, and confirmed, you may have seen, so we've Tommy Bowl, Paddy Keelty, Jimmy Nesbitt and Johnny Sexton playing. That's the 11th of September is a Wednesday, and that's open, that's public ticketed, so there is access for the public to attend. There is a practice day and a Pro-Am on the Tuesday as well, but that's not open to public attendance. And then we move on, of course, to the main event proper, shall we say, from the 12th to the 15th of September as well. And again, I would encourage you even to check out the Irish Open's own socials, because that will give you an overview of the different types of offerings and tickets available. It's always great to know this information if potential guests are contacting you, and at least you're able to talk through what's available, what they might want to avail of. There's Ticket Pro or Ticket Plus offer this time. There's general admission, there's a ballroom experience they're offering, more of a sort of a hospitality offer in the Sleeved Honoured as well. So there are a whole range of ways that people can come along and get inside the ropes and enjoy the event. Next slide, Barry, please. So just again, some key points are around the messaging that we put out and about how great it is to have this event back. And I suppose that wider destination promotion as well. And while it's fantastic for Newcastle and County Down, it does really resonate with the market and the golf tourism market in particular, and just provides that giant welcome, but across apologies, my dog has started to bark. But again, there's such a huge offer in terms of the golf offering in Northern Ireland. We have world-class golf, we have world-class courses, and it's all very much wrapped up in that giant welcome for which we're known. It is wonderful to read all the feedback that we get whenever we host major events in particular, and the welcome and that warmth that comes from everywhere that our visitors go, the hospitality, the accommodation, the people on the street, the people in shops, that really, really adds to that visitor experience. So of course we're very much, I suppose, we're very much delighted about that, but also just want to make sure it continues as well. There will be a great buzz and atmosphere around Newcastle during the tournament as well, and it's almost intended to be almost a festival week, with eats and beats of courses happening the weekend before, and then it will flow right into the tournament itself, and there'll be a whole load of other festivities, and we want our visitors to actually enjoy the local food and drink and music and everything else that they can do. And I'll talk later about just what those opportunities are for you to help promote those other experiences, and again, all back to providing information to our guests and potential guests on that wider experience, and encouraging them to extend their stay for the benefit of the whole local industry. Next slide, please, Barry. This is just to set the context really of golf tourism. Next slide, please. So this is, as I say, essentially just to try and give a sense of why hosting events such as the Irish Open, and then of course the Open in 2025, is so important for Northern Ireland. Our golf tourism offering and the visitors that we get in terms of golf tourism has increased hugely over the last number of years and continues to grow. It's all around our golf courses, our local golfers, but also the global attention and the media profile that we get from hosting events like this. You have images of Royal County Down and the Mourns right across the world, and it's wonderful to see, and it does encourage people to come and stay. Golf tourists are quite high spending visitors, which we're really delighted about, of course. So again, this is why we really want to maximise on those opportunities, make sure that there is the provision there for our visitors to come and to give them reasons and opportunities to spend. As you can see, this slide sets out that for every £1 spent on green fees, a further 4 is spent in the local economy. So again, in terms of setting the context around our average visitor spend, this is a really good return for ourselves. So again, is why we very much encourage events like the Irish Open to return to Northern Ireland, and we try and promote that offering and encouraging people to stay and for the benefit of the industry. Next slide, please. Well, that's me just in terms of the general welcome. I will be back later on just to give you a wee sense of some of the marketing opportunities as well. But what I'm going to do now, I think probably something that most of you are really keen to hear about, and I'm going to hand over to our accommodation certification manager, who is Claire McNaughton, and Claire will give you an overview of what you need to think about if you're thinking about offering accommodation. Thank you, Claire.
Thanks very much, Siobhan. Good morning, everybody. I am Claire McNaughton from the Quality and Standards team, and today I am going to chat you through and outline the requirements and process involved in certification and setting up an accommodation business. Next slide, Barry. So firstly, there are a number of important legal considerations. So you must comply with all relevant legislation, and in particular, the Tourism Northern Ireland Order 1992. This order stipulates that all tourist accommodation providers must receive certification from Tourism Northern Ireland before they're allowed to begin operating. Certification relates to the minimum standards that a property must meet in order to be certified. So minimum standards include areas such as facilities, building fabric, fixtures, fittings and cleanliness. You do also need to ensure compliance with other statutory bodies, and these will vary depending on your chosen category of accommodation, but they may include things like planning, building control, food hygiene and fire safety. Our colleague Peter Cassidy from the Northern Ireland Fire and Rescue Service is on after me, and he will discuss fire safety in tourist accommodation in more detail. Next slide, Barry. So operating a tourist accommodation can be a very positive experience and a very successful business venture. Aside from the financial benefits which can be derived from running accommodation, many owners also enjoy the social aspect of the business, as Siobhan has said, including the opportunity to welcome guests from all over the world. It really allows you to showcase your hospitality and inform guests of all the things to do and see within your locality and beyond. Next slide, please, Barry. So there are 8 categories of accommodation, and you can see them listed there. On this slide as well, you'll also note the fees detailed for each category. This information is available on the business guidance section on tourismni.com, and the fees stated here are payable once every 4 years. Next slide, Barry. We have a number of online guides available on our business guidance section of tourismni.com for each of the 8 categories. Really useful guides. They include a description and a checklist for each, giving you a clear idea, I suppose, firstly, on what the difference is in each, and also, and equally as important, what your visitors will expect from each category. So I suppose hotels and campus accommodation are self-explanatory. The difference between a bed and breakfast and a guest house, for example, is the requirement to serve an evening meal. A guest house will also be able to apply for a liquor licence, so alcohol can be served when it's accompanied by a meal. It really depends on how you want to operate your business, or if you intend to let a bedroom or an entire unit or property to guests. And if you are considering letting an entire property, for example, self-catering might suit your circumstances better. Next slide, please, Barry. So applications can be made online via tourismni.com/forms. You do need to select a category to submit the online application. So have a read at the online guides and the category descriptions and choose the one that you feel suits you best. Once your application is submitted, a member of the experienced and friendly certification team here in TNI will be in touch with you using the contact details that you've provided to schedule a mutually suitable date for the inspection. And don't worry too much about the categories if you're unsure. On the day of your inspection, if your advisor designates another category that you meet the criteria for the style or type of the accommodation that you offer, this will be discussed and it can be changed then. Wait times for inspections is currently operating at around 4 to 6 weeks. You know, if you want an inspection sooner, just let us know. We'll do our best to facilitate that. And likewise, if you know of a few dates or days in the week, perhaps, that might suit you better for an inspection, just let us know. Inspections typically take place between Mondays and Fridays and during office hours. However, if you're not available on those days, inspections can be carried out via key access, and we'll arrange for a follow-up phone call to provide details on the outcome and to answer any questions that you might have following the inspection. Next slide, please, Barry. Okay, what to expect during an inspection. So first and foremost, TNI inspectors are there to help and guide you. We'll offer advice, guidance and support. Think of the inspection as a visit, you know, step away from inspection. It can generally have negative connotations, and it's not about that at all. It's about offering advice and support and guidance from an experienced and friendly individual who will talk you through your chosen category of accommodation and the associated criteria, completely bespoke to your property. Inspectors are there to ensure that criteria requirements are met, and if there are any outstanding areas, you know, these will be detailed with remedial advice offered. So it can be minor items, you know, for example, you may have overlooked crockery or cutlery. You know, we can still certify and add conditions to your certificate. If it's major items such as, you know, key furniture items or cleanliness, that may require a follow-up visit, but it will all be detailed to you on the day. It is always good to present your accommodation as if visitors are arriving on the day of your inspection. It really gives the advisor a clear idea of your offering, and it really ensures that our advice can be tailored to suit your property. You do not need to prepare any food aspect for the inspection. We will look at all areas of your property, and if any areas are not meeting minimum standards, these will be clearly detailed to you to ensure understanding, and we normally stipulate a time frame, which is usually around 30 days. Next slide, please, Barry. So verbal confirmation is usually provided on the day of your inspection, and your certificate will follow by post. You do need to display your certificate within your property as stipulated within the legislation. So many people just pop them into a frame and display them within the entrance areas of their properties. Your certificate is valid for 4 years, although if for any reason you wish to stop trading within this time frame, please just contact us and we will cease and remove your listing. Once compliance has been confirmed, our advisors will discuss best practice in terms of both operational and marketing advice. You can list your property in digital booking platforms and online travel agents in addition to discovernorthernireland.com. If for any reason you don't want to publish your accommodation listing, just let us know. So once you're certified, you can then apply to our quality grading scheme in order to achieve a star rating. The scheme is voluntary and it involves an annual fee and assessment, and it includes a detailed report, certificate and plaque. And then you also have the opportunity to onboard to tni.com. This will really open up a suite of business and industry supports to you. We have our e-learning platform, and you can also access a range of toolkits such as, you know, photography for your property and how to best showcase it online, right through to growing your online presence. Next slide, please, Barry. So in the lead up to the Irish Open in Newcastle this September, Tourism Northern Ireland will be listing available accommodation in the area on the Gulf section of Discover NI, and this is for visitors who'd be travelling to the event and maybe haven't yet secured accommodation. So if you have availability over the event, I don't know if anyone needs reminded of the dates, but between the 12th to the 15th of September 2024, please email that through to golf@tourismni.com and include the following details. So the number of bedrooms available, or if you're self-catering, the number of people your accommodation can hold, the price per night, and if you're not sure, include a starting from rate, and then the best contact information for inquiries to contact you on, so your email or phone number, and that will be published on the listing as well. It's also good to include some images of the property, maybe one external and a few internal, just to give a real showcase to prospective visitors. And our last slide, please, Barry. Thank you. That is me. I know that is a wealth of information, and you may have some questions. Please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. Our email address is qa@tourismni.com, or if you are ready to apply, I have included the link there, online application forms at tourismni.com/forms. Please go on and submit an application, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Claire. That was really helpful. I always find it very useful to hear you talk about it. And I think just to support what Claire said, it's not as scary and onerous as you may think. It's very much in the context of trying to ensure that all our accommodation providers obviously comply with the legal legislation. We don't want anybody to get in any trouble, but also make sure that that offer is of the best standard that we can offer to our visitors. And the toolkits that Claire mentioned as well, they're a great read. There are things, just ideas even, you might not necessarily have to have a number of the items on checklists, but there's just some really great ideas on there. So again, would really encourage everybody to have a look at those. As I say, they can just be really helpful. So I'm now going to hand over to Peter Cassidy from Northern Ireland Fire and Rescue Service, who's just going to talk us through the fire safety requirements.
Morning everyone, thank you for your time and thank you for Tourism NI to offer me to speak here today. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of fire safety when offering tourist accommodation. In today's session, if we go to the next slide, Barry, please. Today's session we're going to cover the fire safety law in Northern Ireland, which includes your requirement to have a fire risk assessment for the property and ensure you have the appropriate fire detection and warning system in place. I'll also cover about how you can ensure occupants can know what to do in the event of fire and keep everyone safe in the property if there was an incident to occur. I'll give you a brief overview of the required standards, and I'll also tell you where you can get further information if required. Next slide, Barry, please. So the fire safety law in Northern Ireland includes the Fire and Rescue Services Northern Ireland Order 2006 and the Fire Safety Regulations Northern Ireland 2010. These laws and legislation apply to most buildings that are not domestic premises. So if your property is going from a domestic premises to offering tourist accommodation, you will fall within this legislation. It's important that you know what your requirements are and how to stay compliant with the legislation. Next slide, please. So the main requirement under the legislation is that the owner-occupier carries out a fire risk assessment for the property. And this fire risk assessment includes identifying any hazards that may be in the property, identifying the people that are at risk and evaluating those risks and ensuring that you are aware of all those risks and that there are mitigations put in place if required. It's important that you record any risks and mitigations, and this will also cover you in the event of something happening in your property. It's also important to review it. So if you currently have accommodation, it's important that you review your fire risk assessment on a regular basis. Next slide, please. So the fire detection and warning is an important part of ensuring that the occupants of your property are safe in the event of a fire. So the fire detection and warning system will depend on the type of premises, the occupancy, the age of the premises, and the risk profile, and also the number of floors. Depending on the different styles of property will determine how what fire detection you are required to have. The required standards will detail this for you, and I'll tell you about that in the next couple of slides. Next slide, please. Yep. So if, for example, for fire detection and warning, if, for example, you have 6 or less people, you may be able to just have smoke detectors in your circulation areas, i.e. your hall or your landing. However, if you have more than 6 occupants, you may require to have more smoke alarms. And you will require to have them in the bedrooms that are leading on to escape routes. So it's important to consider that when you are offering your accommodation, and consult a relevant guide, and we'll always be available to assist you and provide advice if required. Next slide, please. So it's really important that your occupants know what to do in the event of a fire. And this should include clearly identifying the route of escape, raising the alarm if required, ensuring all guests are evacuated, and calling the fire and rescue service in the event of a fire. You can do this by providing signage around the property and also informing the occupants maybe on arrival or when on check-in. But it's important that you do that in order to cover yourself if something were to happen. Next slide, please. It's also important that your occupants can escape in the event of a fire. Exit doors should be opened from the inside without the use of a key. Exit signs should be appropriate where required, and emergency lighting should be provided where required. Now, for the signage and the emergency lighting, it really depends on the size of your property. So, for example, if there's only a front and a back door, it's fairly obvious where occupants should escape to. However, if your property is more complex, you may need to direct people using signage and emergency lighting. But that all can be determined by an appropriate and suitable and sufficient fire risk assessment using the appropriate guide. Next slide, please. So the appropriate guides are available on our website, and I'll show you where you can get them in a second. But for the small bed and breakfast premises, this is guidance for occupancy of 6 or less people. Okay. For self-catering premises, we also have the fire safety guide for small self-catering premises, and that's 10 or less occupants. And the last guide covers all other sleeping accommodation, and that's anything that doesn't fall within the other 2 guides. Now, I see there was a question about someone offering accommodation in a caravan. There's also a fire safety guide for caravan operators that you can get on the website. Next slide, please. Our website is www.nifrs.org, and we have a business fire safety section on the website. And you can see that here you can go over to fire safety guides and you'll see all those relevant guides. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The guides are available or in this format. You can download them from these links, and you see, as I mentioned there, there's also one for caravan site operators. Next slide, please. We also have some templates to help you when carrying out your paperwork for your premises. There's a fire risk assessment template. There's also a fire logbook template, which allows you to record all the testing of your systems and the training of your staff if you have any. There's also a policy statement there and a fire action, emergency action plan template that you can download, make it your own and publish it. Next slide, please. So in conclusion then, we have the minimum requirements would be to carry out a fire risk assessment for the property. The legislation requires you to do that, especially because you'll be licensed by Tourism Northern Ireland. You also have to make sure that the appropriate detection is in place for the property, and that will depend on all those things that I mentioned earlier, and that your occupants can escape in the event of a fire and they know what to do if a fire occurs. We have provided a fire safety fact sheet, which will be available in the email that you'll be sent following this webinar. And if you're in any doubt, you can contact Northern Ireland Fire and Rescue Service and we can advise. You can the contact details are on the fire safety fact sheet, and we can advise if you have any queries, contacting the Protection Department at our service headquarters in Lisburn, and the number will be provided on the fact sheet. I see I have a couple of questions to address. I will address those in the question and answer session at the end. Thank you.
That's great. Many thanks for that, Peter. That's a really good overview. And one of the things that I was going to cover in the close, but I think just to potentially give some information in advance of any questions that come through. This webinar is the first of 2 sessions that we're planning to host, and this is very much focused on accommodation, of course, as we have received lots of questions around it in particular. but we're also hosting a wider industry engagement session next Wednesday, the 29th at 4 o'clock in the Slieve Donard. It's from 4 till 5:30. We will be covering wider topics than just accommodation. So the likes of DP World Tour will be there giving us details about what they can share the data around, travel and transport and parking and so on. But we will also have representatives from our quality and standards team. That's Claire and her guys, her team, and also Peter's colleagues from Northern Ireland Fire and Rescue Service, and they will be there. If anyone wants to have particular one-on-one conversations, sometimes it's easier to drill into the detail of your own offering on a one-on-one basis, and just if you want to, maybe don't want to raise something in a public forum as well. So as I say, they will be there, not just presenting, but at the back of the room essentially for those one-on-one conversations. So thanks again, Peter. I'm now going to hand over to Carolyn Boyd, who's our Industry Development Manager in Tourism NI, who will help you prepare to welcome our visitors.
Thanks, Siobhan. Great to see so many of you here this morning, and I know you've heard from Claire on certification and Peter, and what I want to try to focus on is you guys. So what I'm going to touch on a wee bit is about the strength of our welcome and some of the research that's been coming through as well. So what I'd just like to say is, we've been through a few Irish Opens and the Open itself, and we've got lots of lessons learnt. So as Siobhan says, lots of opportunity to share, and I'll be in the Slieve next week as well. So hopefully meet some of you there. So really what I'd like to touch on today is about our welcome, and the research keeps telling us that whilst there's lots of things to see and do, it's the strength of our welcome that actually makes people extend their stay and stay longer and obviously come back for more. And that's all linked to our brand. And some of you may be aware, I'm sure that some of you on the call are opening your doors for the first time to tourism, but a few of you there will be good seasoned experienced people who have been through the Gulf before. So the Embrace Our Giant Spirit brand is really all about being big-hearted, and big-hearted sits at everything we do. It's probably the reason why a lot of you are in the business. It's about your passion and energy, and as again, it comes up in the research as we welcome people not as visitors, but as friends and family, and that keeps coming back in the research as well. A good thing to note, and it goes hand in hand with the welcome, is that it's really important to know who your visitor is, and a lot of stuff online is about emails, booking, etc., getting things right, but do we really know who's coming? And I think that's really, really important. And just to note that unlike the Open, the bigger event, we may have all these celebrities, and I know Jimmy Nesbitt's coming and Johnny Sexton, etc., but we actually will have a lot of domestic visitors and ROI visitors. So maybe less helicopters flying in, more of people getting on the road and coming up to see you. So it's really, really important that you know, is it a group coming? Is it a family coming? Is it a couple of people? Is it golfers? And obviously to provide itineraries. And I know you do this so well. So if you get an opportunity to engage really, really early in who is coming, then that would be fantastic. So it's just about putting your passion and energy into everything you do, and I mean, sharing a bit of that wit and humour that we have in Northern Ireland that sets us apart from everything else. So as I say, it's mainly domestic visitors, so we're going to touch on price again, but a lot of the tickets, I know Siobhan will keep us right on this, but I think the majority of the tickets are already sold. So if you haven't had a booking yet, it might be time now just to review your pricing, review your website, look at the staffing, you're ramping up staff, etc., etc. So it's really just to provide a checklist of everything that you're doing, just to make sure that you're totally on point. We did recent research about the visitor experience and a bit of sentiment about what they think of coming to Northern Ireland, and it was quite a large sample. So we took a sample of 750 adults in ROI and 400 in Northern Ireland, and the good news that we just received recently is that overnight stays are up 46%, and our spend is up 86.6 million on that's on 22 to 23. Obviously, it takes a while for this research to come through. And all types of visits grew, so that's holiday trips, visiting friends and family, and our business. So it's fantastic, and it shows that we're scoring really, really well on value for money. One thing I should also just say is that there's still an issue around about cost of living, and people are being really careful as well. So if they are booking the tickets to the golf, they're likely to be looking for great deals and lots of things to see and do. The other things that come in really, really strong on our research is people still like to go to the coast. They are still walking in the mountains, and they're really enjoying our food. So we are scoring really highly in those areas. So really it is just about trying to showcase the local area, what there is to see and do. So as I say, they come back and spend more. They're obviously coming to see the golf, but we'd really, really love to see them to come back. The other area is that you may be looking to ramp up some staff. Some of you may be taking on some staff to make your offering a bit and take the pressure off yourselves, especially if there's lots of people visiting over those peak months. We have launched a couple of years ago a Make It Here campaign, which is all about skills and trying to recruit and retain the best that there is. So I would encourage you to go and look at the Make It Here site, which is found on tourismni.com, and it's all around trying to reach the best people. So it links through to lots of job sites, and you can put your jobs up there, and you can use the imagery and all the assets as well. And we'd also encourage you to sign up to the Wellbeing Promise, which is a little checklist about how you treat your staff, because we know that there's one thing finding great people, but it's also great to keep them. So we would encourage you to have a look at the Wellbeing Promise. And as Claire mentioned earlier, we have also launched an e-learning platform fairly recently on tni.com, and it's My Tourism NI, and you can reach it again through the website. And it has a lot of information there, really short, sharp, good video tips about people, about looking after the accommodations on there, about trying to save money through energy savings, etc. So there's a wealth of things, and the great thing about this is you can just tap into it as you go along at your own pace, at your own time, and you can earn some badges as well. So that is really a bit from me in terms of just that sort of checklist, again, to say that we know that you have opened your doors. You have a lot of questions of pricing. We're going to pick up some of those later on. But listen, thank you very much, and I'll see you all hopefully next Wednesday.
That's great, Carolyn. Thank you very much. And just to pick up on your point about ticket availability, there are tickets still available. In particular, our last wording from DP World Tour is the Thursday and the Sunday. So I think it's very helpful for everyone just to keep an eye, particularly on Irish Open social media, because you will see, where they're saying maybe there are Ticket Plus sold out, Grandstand sold out, but where there's general admission tickets available, because that also gives a sense of there are opportunities out there to convert those visitors who may be thinking of coming along, thinking of buying a ticket, but also there's that wider package. So they want to make sure that there is accommodation available, and it's at good value or fair pricing in this cost of living crisis as well. So thanks a million, Carolyn. So I'm just going to touch now on just some of the marketing and promotion opportunities that are available. Again, this is one of the themes of questions that have come through to us in the pre-event, the pre-webinar questions that we received. So again, this is just a flavour of the kind of opportunities that you can take advantage of and get involved in. But you'll see on the next slide, which I won't move on to yet, but there's a contact detail for one of our marketing team, who again is always very, very happy to take any questions and have direct discussions. We're Tourism NI. We need all your product. We need that great offering to encourage our visitor here. So again, we're so happy to support where we can. So as you can imagine, I'm sure we continue to promote the Irish Open across all our own channels and our earned marketing channels. So that's where we can, put some spend behind the promotional opportunities and make sure that we direct where we feel that we can best get that return on investment from our part. Our socials are in particular a really key area for ourselves. So again, I would very much encourage you all to make sure that you follow us on Insta and Facebook and all the usual channels as well. And also, if you're posting yourselves, the hashtag that we use to get involved is hashtag NI for Golf. And please do use that, because again, whenever people are doing searches of what's available and what those offerings are, that means that your product and your offering may well appear. And also we can keep an eye on it too, and we can see where there might be opportunities to share that offering and share posts and so on. One of our key platforms is the Discover Northern Ireland website, and we would strongly encourage you to please make sure that your product listing is on Discover Northern Ireland and is up to date as well, and just has as much information as you possibly can provide. Next slide, please, Barry. Just to follow on from the Discover Northern Ireland reference there, your property and your experience and the accommodation, attractions and experiences can all be bookable on Discover Northern Ireland. There's 0% commission, which again, I suppose looking at the platforms that are available, is quite a good opportunity. But again, it's all about making sure that your product is listed on there. If you need any help whatsoever, you can contact Kevin Ford. Kevin in our marketing team is k.ford at Ford with an E at the end at tourismni.com. But as I'd mentioned earlier, these slides will be available on the recording, so you will be able to look back and pick out emails and contact details from there. So again, it's very much just about making sure that your listings are up to date and promoted as strongly as you can across the platforms that we offer. But of course, your own socials, using our hashtag, get involved, even share those discussions if there's an experience in your area that you feel ties in very well with your accommodation offer. Join those discussions. We're all in this just to try and make sure that the best opportunity is availed of for our industry and the best experience provided to our visitors. So again, it's just all in this together to create that conjoined welcome for our visitors. Next slide, please, Barry. So we'd mentioned at the start that we have had a number of questions. We've had a number of questions through in the pre-registration, at the registration stage, plus we've had a number of questions that we can see coming through here as well. I'm going to hand over to Patricia in our Patricia, my colleague, who's going to look after those. But can I first just mention a question or a point that has come through, which I actually knew I should have mentioned, and this is on me, I forgot to call it out, that we work really closely, by the way, with Newry Morning Down, a district council, and we have very regular calls. We're about promoting this destination, not just, well, obviously for the Irish Open and the area itself, but for us from a wider Northern Ireland point of view. So we're working with council about developing those itineraries to encourage people, as I keep saying, to stay longer, you extend their stay, to spread that benefit right around the region. And Newry Morning Down District Council and the team, they have a bank of really fabulous itineraries that can encourage people to go out and experience everything that is to offer. So do rest assured that that there is that joined up approach taking place. And we also work with DP World Tour to make sure that we can maximise on every opportunity possible. So apologies for omitting that earlier on. And Patricia, I will hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Siobhan, and to all of our speakers so far this morning. Loads of really useful information to absorb, and hopefully something for everyone online today. We're delighted to have so many of you joining us live today, and I know some people will be watching us again on the recording. So as Siobhan mentioned, I'm Patricia Kingston. I'm the Corporate Events Officer at Tourism NI, so I'll be facilitating the Q&A session today, and I'll shortly be welcoming back all of our other speakers alongside Siobhan to pick up on any questions you have. So if you've got something you wish to ask and you haven't yet popped it into the chat box, just feel free to do that over the next minute or two, and I will pick up as many as possible today. But if we don't manage to get to your question, we have your details if you submitted a question, and one of the team will aim to come back to you directly to pick up whatever your query was. Just before we get stuck into those, I'm going to do a couple of very, very quick polls just to get a feel for how useful you find today's session so far. So the first poll should pop up on the screen shortly, which is, how would you rate today's session in terms of overall satisfaction? So that's on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being extremely satisfied. I'll just give you a moment to complete that. Okay, thank you so much. And our second poll today is simply how would you rate today's session in terms of content and relevance to your business? Again, on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being extremely relevant. Okay, thank you. And our final poll is just a very, very simple yes or no question, and it's do you plan to take an action within your business as a result of what you've heard from our speakers so far today? So that's just a quick yes or no. Okay, thank you so much. Now, my pleasure to welcome back. Everyone should be up on the screen there for you. We've got Tourism NI's Head of Events, Siobhan McGuigan, our Accommodation Certification Manager, Claire McNaughton. We've got Carolyn Boyd, our Industry Development Manager, and Peter Cassidy is kindly joining us as well from NI Fire and Rescue Service. So let's get stuck into some of your questions. We're trundling through the time here this morning, so I'll get through as many as we can. First question I've got here is for yourself, Siobhan, if you don't mind, we'll kick off with you. Are there any particular places to advertise to reach golfers specifically?
I suppose really, I think as I mentioned, our social media platforms and wider social media, I suppose, where any kind of golf forums are one of the best platforms on which to advertise to that golf visitor. And obviously there are relevant booking platforms as well, depending on what you choose to use. So we have booking.com, Airbnb and so on as well. They're all opportunities via those, in particular, the social media platforms. We do have a golfer welcome section on Discover Northern Ireland for accommodation listings. So we can link people to then link that into any campaign activity that we're pushing out as well. So again, just very much encouraging everyone to please make sure that your listing is available on Discover Northern Ireland, and pick up with Kevin Ford if there's just to talk through any opportunities that you think you might want to just explore further. We have a stay and play offer section as well on Discover Northern Ireland, where accommodation providers can link in with courses and try and cluster that experience, and I suppose to say, well, yeah, just to make sure that there's a combined package there. So again, it's something very much to look at, because that directly targeting, I suppose, the golf visitor, and might help just to promote what you have on offer. But we also want to always consider the fact that there are, wider families, friends groups that come along. Not everybody might want to get inside the ropes, and so it's just as well making sure that the promotion to that family market, to those wider friends groups as well, it is really important, because as I say, not everybody might want to actually go to the golf, but we just want to make sure that we can encourage people and visitors to understand that other offering that's going on in the area, other itineraries, experiences, the hospitality to enjoy, and so that they may well come along as well. Not necessarily, as I say, attend the golf, but that they can, we can attract them and make sure that we have that information provided to them.
Absolutely, that's great, Siobhan. Thank you so much. We've had a few questions in terms of, how far away from the golf course itself would be suitable, or so we've had a specific question in relation to Carryduff. Would that be too far out, or how far is too far in terms of accommodation? Carolyn, would you maybe be able to give us some thoughts on that?
Yeah, big shout out to the people of Carryduff. Yeah, we're so small, we're only a couple of hours away from anywhere here, but I think it's back to my previous point. If you know your visitor, and as Siobhan says, is it a group coming? Is it, a couple coming? Is it golfers coming? I think it's about being really authentic, and back to the Giant Spirit brand, be really transparent, find out who they are, Google Maps, tell them exactly where you are and how to get there, and share the logistics of get there. Have they got a car? Is it, public transport, etc., etc. So I think people can get, to the golf from anywhere, but I just wouldn't want them to be disappointed by having a bit, driving from Cork, for example, to find out that you've got another so many hours travel to get to the golf. So I think it's a bit of common sense and being really authentic with their visitor and knowing who they are.
Yeah, Absolutely, it's that accessibility side of things as well, from where you're based and knowing and understanding that. Amazing. Okay, Carolyn, I'm going to come straight back to you again. I know you touched on it about in terms of looking at your pricing and things, but can you provide any advice on how to price accommodation? We've had a lot of people and they're just not quite sure how to price, where to pitch it. Is there any advice you can give, or any where you can point them a direction to?
I'm kind of looking nervously at Claire here, because we obviously will never jump in and start, giving too much advice in terms of pricing. But I would say there's been examples of where we know about price hikes, and as it's back to the tickets, I would have gone back to the tickets. If you're still sitting there and you've got accommodation free, it might be that your pricing is just wrong. Now we would also say about benchmarking, but the other thing there is that everybody in the area has hiked their prices. You're looking at your neighbours going, oh, they're dearer than me. So it is a really, really tricky one, but I do think that you'd have to review it, and it's something that I would just make sure that you're just all being a bit reasonable and not being too ridiculous about it all. And you can look at benchmarking from other regions as well, not just locally.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've had a question through here, and we've sort of heard this a few times of people being told that there are like production companies or big businesses who are prepared to pay a lot of money to come or that might need storage space and things like that would pay high end prices. And I suppose people are wondering, is that the case, or is that not so applicable to the Irish Open? I'm not sure that it's something we can advise on, but I think sometimes it's maybe that that sort of you hear this story of someone that's got a fortune, and then you're holding out for that one. But I don't know if there's any advice, Carolyn, or even yourself, Siobhan, that you can give on that, or a line on that.
On that one, I know, as Carolyn says, this is always the tricky one, isn't it?
No.
Now, in terms of the big production companies, like we know that media companies and so on will come in, and they may pay over what a normal visitor might be able or prepared to pay. However, that's not something even we really get into, or that we even have access to, being totally honest about it. A lot of those big companies will use their own sort of booking agency and a provider to go and source out accommodation. So again, it's just, I suppose, about making sure that your offering is available as widely as possible, so that you might stand out from the crowd there. But I think back to the point about pricing as well. We have found in the past that, I suppose Carolyn touched on it as well, for other events, that you might have very significantly overinflated your rates. And like, we all see them. I've seen my folks are they live in Newcastle, and we all see, there's discussion and there's chat and there's screenshots shared on WhatsApp groups as well about, some accommodation that's offered at significantly inflated rates. What we have found in the past is, what can often happen is, come closer to the event time, there's just no booking. You just do not get a booking, because not only, if it's your average visitor, not only is there a bit of a cost of living crisis, people may be prepared to pay a bit more, because they know it's sort of a prime time and the event is on. But for ourselves, with a lot of Northern Ireland visitors and a lot of ROI visitors, there would be the option to just come for the day. So we want to try and convert that by being able to offer, a fair price. Also, we don't want visitors to feel like they're being taken advantage of. So again, you want to give them that really good welcome. You don't want to leave them with a bad taste in their mouths. And also, we want them to know, this is great, this is brilliant opportunity here. You can get, really good quality accommodation in a fabulous place for a decent rate, and then they'll come back. So it's about thinking about that longer term opportunity as well. And again, for us too, with DP World Tour, they're reporting that they are seeing some quite significant hikes in accommodation too. So we also want them to come back. We want these big events to come back. And so it's just trying to work together. We understand that everybody's had a hard time coming out the back of COVID as well. And you've got electricity hikes and all your supply rates and your supplier costs have increased as well. But again, back to Carolyn's point, just try and be reasonable. We don't ever mandate what you should charge, but we also want you to get business. So just try and set that at a reasonable rate so that you actually might get a booking.
Yeah, if I could just come in there on the back of that too, Siobhan. So I suppose, as Siobhan has said, we're never going to mandate that this is the price you'll charge. Pricing is very personal to you and your business. And I would say cut out the noise and work out what you need yourself to cover your costs. Is this a long-term business venture for you? And if that's the case, work forward from there. But you know, it's personal to you, so focus on what you need to cover your costs, and that's a really good starting point. And consider sort of the legacy of the event. We want people to come back to Newcastle, absolutely, and we want them to experience the wider destination when they're here. So you don't want them spending X amount on accommodation and not being able to afford the other experiences that we have on offer. There's a piece for everybody. That's what I would say.
Brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. Actually, Claire, while I've got you, I'll come to you quickly here. We have someone who was wondering if there are house insurance implications to providing accommodation for the event. I'm assuming it's someone that's new to accommodation, that's considered open in a private residence at this time. So is there any advice you can give on that?
Yes. So insurance is a complex area. And what I would say is to contact your insurance provider and talk them through what you're potentially going to offer to understand the costs in that. There are many sort of different providers that have different approaches and different stipulations. So speak to them to detail exactly what you intend to offer and go from there. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. And Siobhan, I'm going to come to you for just one final one because we're sort of running out of time here, and then I'll let you close us off here. But what's the best way to sell accommodation online? So, but for both new and more established providers, I know you kind of touched on that when you were covering the marketing slides, but is there any final piece of advice you can give on that?
We know that there are lots of different booking platforms, and just seeing a question coming in here, there's a particular website that is offering itself for a fee. Of course, they are all businesses. However, there's some of the rates are I suppose it's from what we've heard, it's quite a high fee, and maybe some of the pricing that they are encouraging and putting forward as being realistic is maybe not what we would recognise as realistic or really want to stand over. But yeah, again, there's a number of different platforms you can list your offering on Discover Northern Ireland. We also, Tourism NI also has a partnership with a platform called TXGB, which is another listing platform. Like, we know there's Airbnb and Booking.com and all the rest of them, but we had hoped to have someone from TXGB or from Tourism NI that can talk in detail with TXGB on the webinar today, but unfortunately he got COVID, so he has been unable to join, but he is going to be available at the in-person event next Wednesday on the 29th. And again, we can follow up afterwards if anyone has any particular questions, and I think we're going to put a wee link to the TXGB information on tni.com. Thank you, Barry's on it as always, in the chat there. Again, all the different booking platforms, they charge different rates, they provide different offers, and this is just one again that really, I suppose it's about what your offering is. Is it short term? Is it longer term? Sometimes an accommodation provider is happy to pay maybe a higher fee on one platform if they feel they'll get more reach, or they prefer to have that lower fee, but then maybe work harder yourself to try and promote your offering. So again, there is no one size fits all. It would probably be way easier if there was, but again, just to make sure that you take advantage of the likes of the Discover Northern Ireland platforms as well, and have a wee look at that TXGB, and the guys in our marketing team will be more than happy to chat you through any questions.
So I think, sorry, go ahead.
No, I think that's it from me.
And we're at 11 o'clock here, so that's us basically out of time for questions. Siobhan, just if you had any final closing comments you want to make, I'll hand back over to you. And thanks so much to everybody.
thanks very much, Patricia, and everybody on our panel. I think we could have went on for a while longer. Just a reminder that there is an in-person event next week, the Sleeved Honoured, on the 29th of May at from 4 to 5 o'clock. We are going to have, we'll be there, I think all of us will be there actually. Our fire and rescue colleagues, our DP World Tour themselves are coming along there. Their head of championships is coming along, and he's going to update us all on what he has to share in terms of updates on, you know, there's always the traffic and transport and parking and all that there are always those burning questions that we all have. We might not all have the answers at one time next week, but we will endeavour to provide as much information to you as possible. And of course, really importantly, our colleagues from Newry, Mourne and Down District Council will be along as well, and because we are all very much working together on delivering or on supporting DP World Tour to host this really great event. You can register for that event next week at tourismni.com, and I think there we go, Barry's on it again, the link is in the chat. There's a link there if you want to register. We have also included some email addresses here if you want to speak to any of us personally. Again, we'll be there next week only if you're able to come along, but do feel free to reach out to us. And I just want to jump back, there's a question there, actually about the Open. Are the members of staff here today the same people to talk to you about the Open? Yes, that's us. We're everything. So more than welcome for anybody to reach out, and we will help where we possibly can. So just to close, 2 minutes over time, thank you for bearing with us. Thank you so much for so many people joining us. I think it just shows the interest that's out there and that wealth and breadth of offering that we have, and everybody wanting to be part of this, and make sure that we provide that great offer and welcome to our visitors. We hope to see some of you at least at the event next week, and thank you again for joining, and we will be sharing information in the post-event email with you. We'll be sharing the link to this recording and also a feedback survey that we would very, very much encourage you to please complete. You can ask any other questions there as well, and we'll make sure they're also included in the in-person session. So thank you once again to all our panelists, and to very much and very importantly to you all for joining. Thank you.
Bye. Thank